All right, hey, Brett here. So I'm going to start with a shake. I want to talk a little bit about why this is an important thing for you to do. And also, I want you to look right there. All right, just look at the, 'cause that's me. That's me in 2015. So I'll come back to that. So shaking moves all your joints. It also encourages your interstitial fluids, the waste fluids, to get moved into your lymphatic system where they're cleaned. They're separated into the liver, the kidneys, or if it's clean, it comes out the neck back into the body for reuse. So you're stimulating your lymphatic system. If you do it on a consistent basis, it helps stimulate your parasympathetic system, which is going to lower your A1C or long-term inflammation, which is going to also help indirectly with your, your sugar resistance, your leptin sensitivity, your your blood glucose, and so on. So shaking is a really good practice. Now about this. In 2015, that's what I looked like. And long story short, I did a ketogenic diet, dirty keto diet, lost some weight, and then I started practicing Tai Chi. And then through a decade of mind-body practices and health practices, this is where I'm at. So when I say I shake, I really shake. This is shit I do all the time. And I mean, I could certainly lose a little more weight and I could certainly get some more upper body strength, but versus this. So you can truly change the heck out of your body. And it was slow, consistent, small change. Don't try to do big change. If you're able to change on a regular basis, you can go from this to this. So anything you see, any of these videos on my channel, it's me doing the stuff that I do myself. This is me practicing and just talking about it because I like doing it. And it actually helps me because sometimes I actually listen to the stuff I say and I'm just really saying other stuff that I've heard from other people that my brain has processed. Anyway, I'm getting tired. Enough shaking. Again, I'm tingling. My entire outer surface is tingling. But whatever was going on out there, which again, I was playing a stupid phone game. I get into these little loops. Another week or so, I'll get out of it. But until then, this is a trick I can do to get myself ready. I'm just going to go for a big stretch tonight. So trying to decide between front splits and side splits. And what are we going to do, Chesh? What do you think? Front? Okay, let's do front. Let's see. I'm just going to use, well, I don't know how many props I'm going to use. I'll do the basics like I usually do. That should be sufficient. Okay. The front splits, as opposed to the side splits, is something that most people with consistent practice can do. Biggest challenge with the splits is you're exposing your groin. From an evolutionary standpoint, the body wants to protect this. Think about it. When you get scared, right, you protect your heart, you protect your groin. So when you start to stretch that part of your body, you're doing both fighting millions of years of evolution. And if you don't believe that, that's fine. I'm just telling you what I understand. And then also, you're fighting an amazing amount of muscles and hips. I used to be able to do full splits in the 90s, but because I sat on an airplane for years, I tightened everything up. So your body adjusts to how you use it, but that's true even as you get into your late 50s. So let's do the front splits. Here we go. I'm going to protect my back knee a little bit, heel on the front. Actually, let me think. Okay, so I traditionally start right side first. The reason I start right side first is just because out of habit, that way I do both sides. In fact, if you go back 2 or 3 nights, I did one pose right side only. I forgot. I got distracted. So anyway, it's not perfect, but I'm going to start left, and here's why. My left side, my heel has an issue. If I have trouble doing the pose on my left side, I won't do it on either side. That's one thing. I suspect I'll be fine, but also my left side, other than the heel, is better than the right side. And so the time I spend getting into the pose and relaxing my body will help me start on my other side, which is not as good. So that's my thinking. And I mean, it's a lot of words, but this is one of the big poses. And so it's worth a little extra thinking ahead of time. Now, Chess, you're going to help me, right? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just kneeling. I'm going to kick my left leg out, heel down, foot up, and then I'm going to just stretch forward slowly. And over time, I'm going to breathe to relax. So actually, I'm going to come back a little bit because I'm going to go forward and I'm looking to be close to the screen. There we go. So here we go. Left foot out, knee protected. Actually, this is pretty good right here already. Now, eventually, I'm going to go onto the top of my back foot, but ooh, let's see. I've never done this before. And while I can't hold, don't want to hold it very long. That's perfect. Whew, that's good. Okay, now I've got my knee down. That was a good entry into the pose. I extend my rear foot. So now I'm pointing my toes and I'm feeling it right in my, okay, I'm feeling a little bit in the hamstring here, hip flexor there. So right hip flexor, left hamstring. Now I'm almost off the mat in the back. So I'm going to lift up, go forward a touch. Here we go. I forgot the timer. Okay, well, I'm going to say I've been in a minute. So here we go. Actually, wow. Alexa, volume down. Actually, I'm going to show you a little bit of trick for a second. My left side is better, so I can do it on this side. Let's say you're near the end of a pose and you've been staying there for a while. What you might consider doing is seeing if you can get really stable at that distance. I don't know that this is the case, but it feels like there. So now I'm not going anywhere, but also I'm not going up. So now what I'm doing is I'm normalizing this. I'm just going to stay here for a while. And so by using this little prop, I can sort of say to my body, hey, let's just make this normal. Now, actually, it turns out I'm getting a really good stretch on my right hip flexor, and I'm going to come out of that. But something to think about. After about 2 minutes, you're starting to make permanent tissue damage. I'm sorry. Freudian slip, mistake. Hopefully not damage. Hopefully change. So I started saying some stuff earlier. Anyone can do, well, okay. The front splits is generally available, or certainly improvement on the front splits is generally available for anybody who wants to work on the pose. And also, there's a lot of stuff you can do that's not directly it. So, anytime you're doing a hamstring stretch, you're helping. Anytime you're doing a hip flexor stretch, you're helping with the front splits. Now, it's not just those things, but anything you do will take a lot of the difficult part away so that you can work on the real difficult part, which is ultimately spreading the hips. And this is fairly intense, but actually, this is not that intense. I'm not too deep in at the moment. It feels like if I come over just a touch, now I moved what, half an inch to my left, and now it's turned up from a 5 to a, actually maybe an 8. I got to come back just a touch there. That's better. That's still intense, but if you go beyond a certain threshold, and you'll know it, you'll learn it over time. What happens is the muscles say up too fast, too far, and the sarcomeres go, whoosh, it's a reflex response. And so we're trying to avoid the reflex response. So stay under it. And you'll know you'll start to get some kind of pushback, or it's like a cascading effect. It's hard to describe, but once you experience it, you'll understand. One of those direct experience things, like, everything in life. I can try to describe it, but If you do this practice enough, you'll figure out what it is. That's a little bit much. Need a little more support on that side. Whew. I'm gonna stay here just a little bit longer. Feel like the left leg's about to soften just a second. Yeah, there it's going. Okay, I'm gonna come out. Ooh. Ah. Oh, that last bit was intense. I didn't stay in it very long. That's okay. I stretch a little bit past where I was for the last few seconds, and hopefully then I'll start a little bit deeper and get to that point next time, give or take. Ooh. Okay, I'm gonna need a moment. Oh yeah, I'm gonna need a moment. My right hip flexor is just stretched. Oh, ay, ay, ay. Ouch. Actually, I say it's not ouch. It's not actually, there's no pain. It's just, I'm going to describe it this way, though. I don't know if this makes sense. When you do this, you're deliberately using your breath to have an effect on your autonomic system. There's two direct ways you can affect your basically your below the frontal cortex mind. Your breath through either speeding it up or slowing it down or changing the ratio of inhale to exhale. Right? Those are the three controls you have on it. And they have very specific effects. Those effects affect your brain, your body chemistry, etc. So, breath. Next thing is visualization. Well, in any case, um, I completely lost my train of thought. My God, I'm just rambling. Hopefully, it'll come back to me. Maybe it was interesting. Who knows? You'll be seeing an AI summary of this at some point, and it'd be interesting to see where I was going. Sure, I thought it was interesting. Okay, now left side was good. I'm actually pretty relaxed. There was something about autonomic system. Oh, breath, controlling your autonomic system, training. In any case, a lot of what we're doing here is we're working with our body and retraining it and letting it know we want to do something different. And the way you get your body to do something different is shockingly simple. You do something different. Now, you might think, I don't want to do something different, or rather, you might think, for example, actually, this is a recent experience of mine. I was really a couple years back. I was really bored at work, and I was like, I actually said, well, if I was just interested in this thing, I wouldn't have any problem with concentration. And so from a sort of a, I don't know if you want to say, I'd say primarily Buddhist perspective, that's basically saying I need some kind of external event for happiness. And that's the definition of suffering. And so I just turned it around. I said, well, I'm going to pretend to be interested so that I can concentrate. And honest to God, it worked. And once I started concentrating, I was able to just basically be interested. So when you find that you have an obstacle and something along the lines of, um, if X would just happen, then I could do Y. See if you can reverse it. Make Y happen. And we have a phrase for this: fake it till you make it. So on this side, well, let's talk about the what you're doing into the nervous system. So when you breathe 5 breaths a minute or slower, you'll tend to, that's a balancing state. It'll bring your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system into alignment. So if you're a little bit tired, it'll sort of turn you up. If you're a little elevated, it'll balance you down. It's safe to breathe that at any time. I typically do that while I'm in the car. I just actively do that. And also, I expand my belly. Expanding your belly is very important. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm 14 years old. My family had Reader's Digest. And in Reader's Digest, I read a story about how it's important to breathe through your nose. And so I learned to do eye contact from Reader's Digest, and I learned to do nose breathing from Reader's Digest. I didn't realize how important that was. When you breathe through your mouth, you tend to also breathe shallowly into your chest. What that does is it gets less oxygen to your brain. Over the long term, it changes the shape of your face and it lowers your IQ. So breathing into your nose is actually a really big deal. Now, if you had told me that 5 years ago, I would say, well, just call baloney on it. But there's data to back it up. So breathing is really important. And notice your autonomic system, it's called autonomic because it's automatic. But just because it's autonomic doesn't mean you can't control it. Think about it. When you're nervous, what do you do? When you're scared, what do? You breathe fast. Well, guess what? You can feign not being nervous and not being scared by breathing slowly. And then if you want to, you can exhale longer than you inhale. When you do that, you very slowly over time lower your heart rate. If you have a healthy heart, your heart does not beat X beats a minute. It beats an average of X beats a minute. Heart variability comes into play, and a healthy heart has high variability. That is, it has quick response to changes. So high variability is good. So when you inhale, your heartbeat goes boop, boop, boop faster. When you exhale, it slows down. So if your ratio of inhale to exhale is something like 1 to 2, over time, you slowly calm down. You're putting your body in a real uncomfortable position. And then you're saying, hey, autonomic system, I know what I'm doing. Your frontal cortex is setting an intention, putting your body in a discomfortable position, and your breath is allowing you to stay here. So I said earlier, if you want something different, if you want to change, you got to do something different. This is doing something different. And as a side bonus, other than when I do something stupid, like use a muscle after I pulled it, I don't have a pain anymore. I've been pain-free for nearly 5 years. And before that, I had headaches daily, migraines twice a week, etc., etc. Here we go. Oh, I didn't want to do that. There we go. Okay. Again, that hip flexor. Ah, okay. Mild endorphins from that. We got a little bit shaky from that. That's intense. Okay, just a sec. I'm going to do one more thing. Yeah, just one more. Okay, so since I just stretched my hip flexors, normally I use a pose called frog to stretch my hip flexors, but I'm now going to do frog with my hip flexors already stretched to see if I can get this more into the psoas muscle. But before I do that, I need a drink of water. So just one moment. Oh, ugh. Okay, so frog. I keep talking about this one. Actually, I went back to 2024 and I looked at a video of me doing this pose. I was doing a version where I was trying to spread my legs far, as opposed to what I'm going to do here. So the frog pose can primarily target the groin and maybe into the hamstrings, or it can target the hip flexors. Now, why do you care about the hip flexors? Excuse me, Chesh. I'm going to move this. You're fine. Okay, good. So you sit all day. Here are my hip flexors. When you flex, so I'm now flexing my hip flexors, the muscle shortens. If you sit all day, the body's like, I don't need long hip flexors. They get shorter. Great. Now, over time, years, not days, over time, your hip flexors get tight. So you stand up. And as you stand up, you have to push really hard because your muscles are tight. Now, it's not hard, it's micro hard. But that ultimately, because of physics, pulls on your lower back. Tight hip flexors from sitting all day mess up your lower back. Also, when you sit, it's hard to extend your belly, which means you stay in sympathetic mode all day long. So you're actually like breathing into your chest and riled up all day long. Sitting is really bad for you. Genuinely, it's awful for you. I've got a whole series of poses on reversing the effects of sitting. This is one of them. And I suggest you do it this way. Don't emphasize the groin. Emphasize the hip flexors. And here's how you're going to do it. I'm going to show you it on the ground. I'm going to stand up and show you what it looks like for a different orientation, and then I'm going to do the pose. So the pose looks something like this. My feet turned out, and I sit back into it. Something like this. I'm going to show it from the side. So first of all, knees are so far apart, turn the feet out, and then sit back into it. That's the basic pose. Now, you can try to spread your knees wide, but if you do that, you take the risk of putting a weird side pressure on your knee. So don't do that. If you get any kind of pressure on your knee, back off. No, don't jerk off, but back off. Don't mess with your joints. Don't mess with your joints. We shouldn't be doing ligaments. We shouldn't be doing tendons. Don't mess with your joints. Work on the muscle body. So for this pose, what I'm doing is I'm going to take and externally rotate my feet, lateral rotation. Think Charlie Chaplin if you're old enough to know that reference. And then I'm going to sit back into the pose. Now, before I started doing this pose, say 2 months ago, this is about where I was at. But it loosens the hip flexors. So the problem is that's hard to hold for very long. Though I could hold it for a bit. I want to hold this for 5 minutes. No way I could do that for 5 minutes. And that's one of the essences of this practice. We want to find a way to get ourselves into a pose so that we don't have to do hardly anything but balance and let time and passive tension do the work for us. And actually, that's another great way of talking about surrendering to the moment. And if you really take the time to focus in on your muscles, you can feel them give. If you watch my video from yesterday, it happened at the end of a pose, and I had to take a moment afterwards because it was like, it just knocked me on my butt. But it was all an internal butt. It was an internal butt kicking entirely. So anyway, knees apart. I'm not going to go too wide. That might be fine. And I'm just trying to find a place so that when I start going back, I feel tightness. Now, my hip flexors are already pretty stretched, I can tell. Okay, oh yeah, there we go. That's good. I'm feeling something actually in both hip flexors right about there. So I'll probably get, a couple of inches, but we'll see. So right now, I've got my eyes closed, but in my mind's eye, I'm looking at my hip flexors. And then I'm trying to sort of visually scan under the skin. And in doing this, I'm telling the brain, I care about this part of my body. And slowly, over time, your body's ability to sense that part of the body will increase. This is called proprioception. You're working on your sense of proprioception by spending time in focus. And the visualization is, again, another technique for getting into the subconscious or into the lower parts of the brain, because language is all in the frontal cortex. And so you don't use language to talk to your lower order brain. Also, just from a psychological standpoint, if you think about family of origin issues, there's a lot of rules that children learn before the age of 5. And there's a very important age. Before the age of 5, there's no default mode network, which means the brain is not filtering the senses or processing them in the same way. And also, if you go even a little bit further back, there's very little verbal skills. So senses are quite differently processed by the brain, stored in a different way at a different time deeper in the brain. So that's why it's so hard to get at childhood trauma. But guess what? This kind of stuff, you do it enough, you get to childhood trauma. This is a somatic approach to releasing tension and trauma and repairing your body. And while I have absolutely no certification or qualification to say any of that, my degree is in computer science. I'll let my personal results and my experiment of n equals 1 speak for itself. So my shins are starting to pull. Oh. Okay, so now deep. There's my psoas muscle. Ah. Right side. Oh wow. Oh boy, chest. I'm balancing a lot. Okay. That was a spasm, so I'm almost too deep, and my sarcomeres are starting to say too much. So I'm going to just adjust a second here. Okay. Notice I'm trying to keep one arm at least locked so that I'm not moving very much when I'm making adjustments. I'm not sure if I've hit a brick wall or just a really tight spot. Ah. Okay, now come out very slow. Ah, I remember what I was talking about earlier. So if you breathe into your chest, you tend to breathe shallowly. You don't breathe into your belly. When you breathe into your belly, you actually get oxygen deeper into your lung. When you get oxygen deeper into your lung, the lower parts of your lung, because you're standing, have more capillaries that are available. So you actually get better oxygenation. Thus, that's why when you're younger, if you start mouth breathing, it changes the shape of your mouth or your face, and it sort of elongates a little bit, and it also causes you to ultimately do brain damage over time. So breathe into your nose, into your belly, expand your belly. If you practice expanding your belly, you can do so while sitting at a desk. So here's the thing: sitting at a desk is like a structural impediment, but it's not a something that stops you. So I'm in a sitting position. I can still pull out my belly. So Now that you know that, this is a very simple thing you can do. And if you remember to do 5 breaths a minute, if you practice on a regular basis and it becomes a habit, when it's in your back pocket, for the first time I really appreciated that, I was driving up to pick up some takeout, and I started having a panic attack. And I was like, I didn't know what it was, but I knew I had some stuff going on. And I happened to be breathing, and I was putting my hand on my belly because I was at a stoplight, and I decided to see if I could write it out. And I wrote it out for 45 minutes, just on the cusp of actually going into a panic attack. And finally, I realized that my brain was telling me I was thinking out about a problem incorrectly. And so, because I was breathing, I was able to notice that. And also, then in retrospect, I realized that instead of it being focused on my chest, it was focused on my rib cage. And then that happened three more times no, two more times over the next 3 weeks. And what was going on? I was on a project. It was a new job. I had just been laid off, new job. So I had a lot of stuff going on, lots of new information. And my brain was basically saying, nope, you're thinking about this problem wrong. Look at it differently, because I was breathing. If I hadn't been breathing, and actually I was also meditating, if I hadn't been doing those things, I would have lost my shit. I would have been fired. That would have happened 7 months ago. So that's why I love this practice. In any case, I think it's enough. My hips are pretty well stretched, and I need to get to sleep. And I've been jabbering. Good night.